Testing. Testing, testing. Vice President Edmiston, can you hear me? Testing, testing. She hasn't answered. Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
We should be able to hear her, right?
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
You're saying that. Aaron's gonna be here.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm really good at this school. And so I think the thing is that honestly it's coming out, but it's like it's a sort of definitely clear. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. How much literally really have for these? The ACP was so big. Yeah, I can't keep it. Yes, it is. Okay.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
It's a small campus, although we're accepting our kids because
Hello?
like it was hard to get Sophie in. Not open environment. The block, like the radius, were actually in like existing urban residence guys have 2 blocks. There's tons of open enrollment outside of the camp. Like you. 4 or 5 years ago. That price, like where the plant is on up. Yeah, that right next behind that. On the other side. Like totally. So they go together. They're going together. That's I like the one together. And so we got a job. She did. Working at Plain States as a hostess / takeout coordinator. Every other.
President President Obai is just a few minutes late, Carmen. Gets your whole party started.
And Chad's ran a couple minutes late too.
Yes, you have 3 slides. Right now. We're getting together. Get side there. That will look better.
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me know. I couldn't say anything. Class just showed up today. I've been thinking.
Testing, testing.
We can hear you. Can you hear us on the other end?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. Thank you.
People started, I'm pretty sure.
Good morning, acting principal Godin. How are you?
I'm good. I think
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, President Ovalle. Good. You want to take a minute, get yourself a bagel and get your glasses. Good. Get yourself set up.
Yeah.
Everybody's good. Right here. Call to order, roll call, pledge of allegiance, adoption. Yeah, I think we're just doing call to order, roll call, pledge. Just study session night. We're convening a governing board study session. Yep.
Ready? All right. It is Monday, May 4th. Welcome to Phoenix Elementary School District Governing Board Study Session. It is 9:09 and I call this meeting to order. I move that we start this meeting. Can I get a second?
Mrs. Carmen, I'll second. Vice President Emiston,
Present.
Board Member Trujillo,
Am I saying present or am I saying aye? Are we taking a roll
Present.
call or taking a vote?
Roll call.
okay,
So present.
President Ovalle.
Yes, I'm here. So with that, I'd like to start off with, in partnership with the tribes who call Phoenix their home. We acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be their partners. With that, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Dr. Alshire, can you tell us who's going to present today?
Good morning, President Ovalle, to our board members, our cabinet and staff. We're going to have multiple individuals presenting today, so it'll be tag team. I'm happy to introduce Principal Eddington from Faith North and our coordinator for language acquisition services, Ms. Mary Lou. They'll be presenting in addition to me providing some information. Director Sims will be providing you with some information, and Director Whittle will also be providing information, and then anyone who wants to interrupt in between. Yep. Do we need to adopt?
Yes. we should.
So
So she has to say it.
so you want to just move to adopt the agenda? You want to move to adopt the agenda?
All right, well, I move that we adopt the agenda. Can I get a second?
This is Carmen. I second the motion.
Vice President Edmiston,
Yes.
Board Member Trujillo,
Aye.
President Ovalle.
Yes. And with that, we have quorum.
May I?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, President Ovalle, to our governing board and to our cabinet and to those who are watching from the luxury of home. My name is Dr. Seth Aylshire. I am stepping in for Dr. Gonzalez, our superintendent, for this study session. It is my honor to introduce some of our speakers today. The purpose of today's study session is to really provide with our board and to our community the latest information regarding our preschool and Head Starts programs. We'll be providing both about the pedagogy that is in those various preschool programs throughout our district. We'll be providing some financial information regarding the longitudinal costs of what has been covered with our preschool program over the years, as well as some academic data demonstrating the impact of that investment and how it's resulted in positive outcomes for our kiddos. And then, of course, accepting any questions that might come from the board during the course of our presentation. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over first and foremost, as I said before, to our principal of Faith North, Miss Angela Eddington. This is her first year being the principal over at Faith North, but before that, she was the IIS of Faith North and has a long track record of service to our very youngest scholars and to our district. And so couldn't be more thrilled to have her presenting some information regarding Faith North and our preschools before we then deviate and talk about some of the other programs. So with that being said, Principal Eddington.
Well, thank you so much for having the opportunity to share about our preschool programs within our district. First, we're going to discuss Faith North Early Childhood Learning Center, and I do proudly say that we are a 5-star quality first rating. This is quite an accomplishment to be able to achieve. It's an evaluation from our environments to our interactions with our students, and to be a 5-star high quality site is really exciting for us. So we are currently actually in the reevaluation process, and we'll get our scores over the summer, and we anticipate once again to have that 5-star rating, but we're looking forward to that evaluation as well. So the criteria for students at Faith North, they need to be 3 to 4 years of age. For our general education students, they are required to be potty trained. However, for our students who have IEPs, they are not, because often many of our children on IEPs are working on adaptive goals, including potty training. So that is not a requirement for those specific students. We are a free in-district program, or in-district for our families. We do not accept open enrollment at Faith North because it is free for our families. We want to make sure that the families within our community have access to our program and high quality preschool program. And that's where we offer those positions there at Faith North. We do have 10 classrooms, 5 general education classrooms, and 5 self-contained classrooms. And what that looks like is our general education classrooms are half of our kiddos are on IEPs and half of them are not. And then our self-contained classrooms, the majority of our students are on IEPs with higher needs. We have students who have autism, preschool severe delay. We have students with medical needs, mobility challenges. And then they also have typical developing peers within those classrooms. And we have found great success with that model, with those interactions with our students engaging with social and communication skills with typical developing peers has shown great improvement and growth in our students with special needs. And they've also been able to transition from the self-contained setting to the general education setting. And we actually have, I think, 2 to 3 students that are going to be doing that for the 26-27 school year. So that's wonderful. So that way we can get them into the general education classroom setting for kindergarten. So that's a really great structure and flow of our program at Faith North. We do have a partnership with the Y Academy for before and after schools care, and they do transport students. We had the opportunity, we had additional Quality First scholarships this year. So we had the opportunity to provide before and after school care for our students for free. So, and that also extends over the summertime. So that was a really big win being involved in Quality First. And then we have an inclusive setting at Faith North. The majority of our students are on IEPs. And from our data from the state, we had a 70% inclusion rate for our students, which is one of the highest in the entire district for preschool. So I'm really pleased and proud to be able to share that with you as well. Yes.
What do you mean when you say inclusion setting?
So that's a great question. So that means that our students will have an LRE on an IEP, so a least restrictive environment. And so they are in the general education setting, the best that it is, the most appropriate for their needs. And then we also have those typical developing peers, which I spoke to previously. That is the inclusion piece. So our students are not, all of our special ed students are not just in a class by themselves. We have the opportunity to have general education peers in those classrooms, in each of our classrooms across our preschools in our district. Yeah. All right. So we also have Emerson and Kenilworth Preschool. They are a 4- and 5-star quality first preschool. Kenilworth is also being reevaluated this year, just like Faith North is. There are students that are 3 or 4 and potty trained independent as well. And when I say potty trained independent, that means you're able to complete all pieces of the toileting routine. So hand washing, dressing, requesting to use the restroom. It is a tuition-based program, so it's $750 a month. We do accept DES childcare subsidy as well, and that covers the entire cost of tuition for those families that do qualify. We have Quality First scholarships available, which covers $525 a month of tuition. And so that really only leaves families with $225 for a full day program. That's 6 hours a day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then 5 hours on Wednesday. We do accept in-district and open enrollment families. So we encourage anybody that's interested in attending those programs to apply. And their classroom is mixed as well. So there are general education students and ESS students too. And then they have a partnership with the Y Academy for before and after school care as well, with transportation, if they wanted to extend their day beyond the full day program as well.
In addition to the programs that are at Faith North, as well as Emerson and Kenilworth, we also have a preschool program over at our Shaw Montessori. It is also a 5-star quality rating program. So again, incredibly proud of those programs and their recognition by the state. Again, in those classrooms, students are 3 to 4 years old and they are potty independent. It is again a tuition-based program with the DES childcare subsidy available. 3-year-old students would do a 3-hour half-day program for $525 monthly, and 4-year-old students are in there for a full 6-hour program, $750 monthly in district and open enrollment families. But again, we have Quality First scholarships that are available to those families to make it as attainable as possible. As Principal Eddington pointed out, these are inclusion-based classrooms. So again, these are mixed classrooms with gen ed and exceptional students in those classrooms together. And again, they, just like the other programs, have a partnership with Y Academy for before and after school care, with transportation being provided. Please do.
I got a question on
Oh, yeah.
the Shaw.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one does have like entrance requirements, doesn't it? Like there's a waiting list, I know that. And then, are you guys gonna get to that, or is it okay?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yep.
No, you're good. Yeah, we will be,
Question.
all good questions. We'll be talking a little bit about their enrollment process here in a little bit.
Thank you.
And then,
And so the Quality First scholarships had not been available for this school year because they weren't enrolled with Quality First, but they did do their evaluation. So for the 26-27 school year, we'll have scholarships available. So for those families that are able to qualify at 3 years for the half-day program, they're going to be going for free. So it's really great that we have these partnerships and these opportunities so that all of our students have access to really high-quality preschool programming at an affordable rate.
thank you, Principal Eddington. We are thrilled that this upcoming school year, we're going to be adding another preschool class into one of our classrooms, into one of our schools. So we're expanding the program. We're expanding the options that are available. So to that end, I want to recognize the incredible work that Ms. Mary Lou Gonzalez and her team have led over at Lowell to be building on our dual language program. And we are thrilled that we're going to be adding next year the preschool dual language. So I'm going to have Ms. Gonzalez talk a little bit about that program and what that's going to entail and look like for next year.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, when this was brought to us, we jumped right on it because it actually was a part when the dual language committee that was comprised of former dual language teachers, of coaches, just people who really wanted to have a dual language program that spoke to the practices that are based on research. We know the importance of having a preschool and offering that to our families. So that is something that we are already worked in to hire a preschool teacher that has prior experience with the program. Our department really wants to structure it where it feeds into our K-2 program, so it's not isolated. It works in conjunction with the goals of the whole DLI program that were set by the committee. So this coming Wednesday, the whole team will meet and go over the foundations and start planning towards those goals. At the same time, we also have our open house for parents this Friday, so they could come out and see what does the dual language look currently. And I think word is already getting out about our preschool because we actually have some preschool parents that are already signed up to attend as well.
Thank you, Mr.
Wait, I may have not talked about the pieces that I'm working a lot and getting to know a lot about the preschool process. So I appreciate Ms. Eddington because she has provided a lot of insight of all that pieces that need to happen in order to get it going. As much as we're doing all of the logistical and curriculum pieces, she's letting us know what are the other pieces that need to happen. What do you want to
Yeah,
start?
sure. So we are, it's going to be the same criteria for having students attend the program to 3 and 4-year-olds, and they'll be potty trained independent. There will be tuition, $750 monthly. We are working on getting the space ADHS certified licensed. And then after that, we're able to apply for DES. We have our documents ready to go. I have an amazing Layla over in student services is phenomenal about supporting all of that. And so we do anticipate we'll have that all done, as well as a subsidy ready to go for our families before the start of the school year. And that's open enrollment and in-district students as well. There'll be a mix of gen ed and ESS students, and then they are that full day. So the same as Emerson and Lowell or in Kenilworth. So it will be 6 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and 5 hours on Wednesdays. And then we will also be offering that partnership with the YMCA with transportation as well. So we are really excited about the expansion of the dual language program. And I've had a lot of feedback from our families that they're interested in dual language. And yeah, you are as well, yes. And so providing that opportunity, I think will be wonderful for the growth of our preschool program within our district as well as your program too. Oh, and then one more thing, sorry. We will be applying once we're all set up to be a Quality First site. So those scholarships will not be available for the 26-27 school year, but they will be available for the 27-28 school year, we anticipate.
Beautiful. Thank you both. In addition to all these various preschool options that we have, not to be confused that we also have Head Start programs. And so sometimes there can be a little bit of confusion between our preschool programs and what those Head Start programs are. So Director Sims is going to give us a little bit of an outline regarding the Head Start programs, where they're located, and what those programs entail.
Thank you, Dr. Belcher. Yes. Start is a federally funded program, which has federal.
Okay, let's try this again.
There you are.
Thank you. Head Start. We do have Head Start at 3 of our campuses. Head Start is a federally funded program. As many of you know, there were some entrance criteria that changed this year, which did make it a little more difficult for children to access the program. But we are happy to have partnerships with Greater Phoenix Urban League and Booker T. Washington to provide those Head Start classrooms at Bethune, Edison, and Lowell. And what's great about Head Start is you might be looking this and saying, well, we just said we were going to add a program at Lowell. It's a really nice combination to have both a Head Start program and a tuition-based program. That just makes it accessible for all families living in the area or who want to access a program in that geographic area. So that's a little bit about Head Start. You will notice that the Head Start program did leave us at Heard. That was a decision made by the city of Phoenix due to enrollment there. They weren't able to meet the enrollment criteria. Early Head Start actually starts in infancy, and I'm not going to quote the age because I'm not sure, President Ovalle. I can look it up for you, but it does run through 5, through kindergarten age. Yeah. Any questions about Head Start? You needed to be documented. Yeah.
I do have a question, and I actually have a number of questions, so I'm trying to ask them at the right time. I don't want to wait too long, but regarding Head Start, and you mentioned the city of Phoenix, can you flesh that out a bit more for us about how those determinations are made and what the role of the district is in making them, or how we play a role?
Absolutely. Great question. So City of Phoenix determines by geographic area or zip code the eligibility. We merely provide the space. On some of the campuses, we also provide food nutrition services for them at lunch, but we literally just provide the space. All programming, all staffing, all entrance and all case management is done by the organization, either Booker T. Washington or Greater Phoenix Urban League that hosts the classroom. That answer your question, Ms. Edmiston?
Yeah. And is it possible, thank you. Is it possible to speak a little bit to the numbers that they look at, or is that something that changes as
So
far as the enrollment goes?
Sure. And I would need to get more hard and fast, but what I understand is they like to aim for a classroom of 20 children with 2 adults. I know that at Hurd last year, they were around the 12 mark, and that was the 3rd year in a row that they had hovered well below their anticipated level of enrollment to keep the classroom. So they had stuck it out a couple extra years to provide the service, but they're meet that criteria any longer. So classrooms of 20 is desired.
Okay, thank you. And just one last question on that is that whenever those numbers are getting low or they're teetering around that limit, is that something that can be done through outreach through the district, or how does that work as far as making sure people are aware that this exists and there's room, basically?
Yes, another great question. So we have a great partnership with City of Phoenix Economic Development. And so we often send our flyers, both our enrollment flyers for general education and for preschool, out to all city employees. The Head Starts have asked for permission to hang banners on our campuses. So there have been large posters up on the fence at Hurd and at the other sites. City of Phoenix Housing does a lot of outreach. So if we know that there are positions available, we often reach out to the housing staff because those families are usually directly adjacent in the housing projects. And so at both Lowell and at Edison, we're able to work with City of Phoenix Housing if we have spots available, because oftentimes those families can just walk across the street. We always include Head Start in any of our preschool mailers go out. And correct me, Ms. Baker, did we send 45,000 notices this year about our early learning opportunities? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sims. Before we do go, we're going to phase into the sort of the pedagogy or the teaching practices that are available at these various preschools. But before I move on to that section, Vice President Edmondson, you said you had a couple of questions. I'll pause right now for any questions regarding sort of the logistics side of what we've discussed so far.
Yes, and thank you. And I just want to make sure that I understand this well. So I apologize. I don't want to take too much time on this part, but just to clarify, so Faith North, it's free for district families, so there is no open enrollment, but the other ones are tuition based. Can that be explained more about why there's that distinction?
Take that, Ms. Edmiston. So we took a year worth of planning to look at our fee for service with preschool. And as we remind everyone, there is no funding that comes in for preschool early learners unless the student has an IEP and is determined to be preschool severe delayed. So when we looked at what we were paying, subsidizing on behalf of the district, and we'll get to that a little bit further in the presentation, we realized that the return on the investment, yes, is huge, and we want those gains for our early learners, but it was something that we really had to look at our subsidy level and what we were able to maintain as a district. So we did a very thorough competitive market analysis of what other preschool programs were charging around the district. I will credit all of that to Angie. She went in depth with what are other districts providing, what are other private facilities charging. And what we found is that $750 a month is incredibly competitive. It is, I would venture to say, the best price you're going to get. And I also was writing myself a couple other notes I'll insert here. I also want to make sure everyone understands every one of our classrooms has a certified teacher. Most preschool programs cannot say that. They are individuals who are dedicated to children, but they are not formally certified or trained in early childhood education. So every one of our sites has certified teachers here in the district. So when we looked at that monthly cost, we wanted to find something that was bringing in income for the district, but was also incredibly affordable for families. And that's how we landed on that $750 a month charge. We, of course, prorate that on months where we're not here for the full month at the beginning of the year in December. And I think those were the only two. Yeah. We prorate those, try and keep it fair. If the children aren't there, we don't want to charge families when they're there. So that $750 came from a market analysis of other programs within the Valley. Not necessarily apples to apples because we have certified teachers, but $750 is very affordable. Some of the programs that we looked at were as high as $1,800 a month. Many hovered around that $14 to $1,500 for a full, and those are not usually full day preschool programs either. So the subsidy that we receive from DES covers 100% of that half day cost. And then like Angie said, covers about 75% of the full day cost. That leaves families coming up with $225 out of pocket for a full day program. Does that answer your question?
I think so on that one. And then just a clarifying question about the partnership with the Y Academy and the before and after programming and the busing. I know it was mentioned at each of the campuses that have preschool. Is it pretty much the same across the board then as far as what is available and the cost structure and so forth?
Yes, great question. So Y Academy is housed at Monterey Park. We have a facility usage agreement with them, some in-kind services, and then some monthly expenses that the Y pays. Transportation is standard. If you have IEP requirements, we're federally obligated to follow those for our preschoolers who are on the bus. And then gen ed students who would like to ride the bus are also eligible before school and after school. As Ms. Eddington mentioned, we were not going to be able to use all of our scholarships that were available at our preschool sites. And so we did transfer those over to Y Academy, which allowed for many families to access the before and after care for free. As we were doing our analysis the year before we started the fee for tuition, what we learned was preschool isn't accessible to a lot of families because they're not full day programs. And so if you're working, it's difficult to get a child there at 9 o'clock, pick them up at 11:30, still be at your job. So we wanted to find a way that made our programs unique to Central Phoenix in that you can get a child either to the school or to the facility, have them get a full day with a certified teacher, and then be able to take transportation to access a few more hours of aftercare. That is very unique to our program. And so that's something that we wanted to make sure we had a partnership that allowed for that. They also accept DES subsidies, so it's quite possible that you could get a preschool subsidy for during the day at our program, and then also have a childcare subsidy going to Y Academy for before or after care. Ms. Eddington, am I correct in that every family that's applied for Quality First received a scholarship this year, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Absolutely. Any other questions, Ms. Edmiston?
I think that's all for now.
Absolutely. Yes, President Ovalle.
Thank you. How many of our families qualify for DES? I don't know, like for the, what do you mean to, like for the schools? Mhm. Oh, really? I thought it would be more, because most of our schools, our students out of our whole district, are they DES? They qualify, don't they?
So that students who qualify for DES are are called direct cert students who meet that income criteria. One thing that we learned when we did that year-long analysis before we went to the fee-for-service is we talked to other providers who said it really takes 2 years to grow a preschool program. Number one, you have to get the accreditations, you have to get the scholarship set up, and then you need to build rapport with the community. I anticipate that those numbers will go up significantly next year when families, first of all, takes a little time to get on the DES approved list. So when you go and look at what centers can I go to that will take my subsidy, now our program will be added to those lists. So I anticipate that as the word gets out that we have transportation, I anticipate those numbers will go up. All providers told us it takes them about 2 years to really get to full capacity for a program, and we're nowhere near capacity in our tuition-based programs. So I anticipate that number will go up. Yeah. Quality First really fills that gap, President Ovalle, between working families who don't meet the DES qualification, income qualification, but aren't able to pay the full tuition price. So that's really where that Quality First scholarship helps out in the middle.
I guess my point was, I mean, to be completely transparent, I'm DES, I qualify for that, so we're on that. And so we qualify for most of these programs. So I was thinking that most of the kids would have access to these tuition-based programs because of DES. That's what I was kind of curious about. Yeah. So it's really on whether they apply or not. Okay.
Residency criteria along with DES eligibility. We do have to keep that in mind. No, meaning federal requirements to receive, and state requirements to receive aid. Those don't have anything to do with the district, but those are governmental determinations for eligibility.
Thank you, Director Sims. If there are no other questions, we're going to, yes, please.
One quick question. Principal Eddington, you mentioned, is it Quality First scholarships that won't be available at one location until the next school year? I just wanted to write a note about that if you could.
Yes, that will be Lowell because they're not part of the Quality First program yet since we're just starting that program, but we will submit the application this year. And I just got an email saying that they're open. They had been waitlisted. So they are accepting applications. So we will submit that as soon as we have our licensure, our DES, and then we'll get on the list to get evaluated. And we already have a teacher for that classroom who has been through the process and is exceptional. So I anticipate that we'll have a really good outcome with that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to phase now into sort of the pedagogy or the teaching practices that are in all of these various programs. We've got Ms. Eddington will speak a little bit about the Faith North as well as the other programs at Kenilworth and Emerson. And then we're fortunate to have Ms. Gonzalez here who will talk about the Lowell Dual Language Program, and I'll provide some additional information regarding the pedagogy or teaching practices over at Shaw. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Principal Eddington.
All right, so we have 3 types of curriculum at Faith North. We have Teaching Strategies Creative Curriculum for our academic curriculum. It's a research-based studies curriculum where students explore for between 4 and 6 weeks different topics. So like water is one we're doing right now, or gardening. And they use a variety of different literature, whole group activities and small groups activities to explore those studies in a variety of different ways academically. And they are also aligned to the Arizona Early Childhood State Standards and connected to the GOLD assessment, which I'll speak to in a little bit. We also have our second step program, which is our social emotional learning program. It provides direct instruction for students in a whole group setting, and then children are provided the opportunity to practice those skills as they naturally occur during play. And which is an important piece of that second step curriculum. They're provided opportunities. For example, one of the themes was fair ways to play. And so there was a direct instruction by the teacher on how to do that, which would be trading or sharing or taking your turn. And then they're provided visual aids and supports in the classroom setting, but opportunities to practice with their peers doing that. We also have our Learning Without Tears curriculum, and that's our handwriting curriculum. It's a multi-sensory, hands-on approach to teaching students how to write. It also is aligned and incorporates letter recognition and letter sound recognition. So those are all tied together within those curriculums. We have a variety of assessments that we also do in preschool. We have the initial screening, which is the Bergant's Early Childhood Screening Tool. And for any student that submits an application for a preschool application, we have them come into the campus and they do a screening of Bergant's Early Childhood Screening Tool. And that is used to see the student's readiness for preschool. It also helps us to identify if there's any additional information that we want with potential delays. We speak with the families about any developmental concerns they have, any outside services they may be receiving. And then once we gather that information from the families, we can refer them to ChildFind, or we can use that assessment to help us with placement for students. And then we also have our benchmark assessment that we administer 3 times a year. We do it when the students come into our program to get a baseline data of where the student currently is at. It includes all developmental areas. We have literacy, mathematics. There's some handwriting in that as well. And then that information is also shared with our families at conferences 3 times a year so that shows student progress. We have our GOLD assessment, which is an observational assessment aligned to each area of the developmental areas, including approaches to learning, language and literacy, math, physical. And that really is a holistic approach where we take observational data over what the students are doing in the classroom setting and outdoors collectively over their whole development. So it's something that's really, we're able to provide concrete feedback for families in regards to their student progress holistically, which I think is really important, especially in early childhood. We have our IEP goals as well. So any student that has an IEP goal, those are tracked and monitored weekly on each one of the goals. And then that information is reported to families 4 times a year and also annually at their IEP meeting. So we are a play-based approach at each one of our sites, and it really focuses on an hour of play in each one of our classrooms. And I spoke to previously with the second step. It's a really great opportunity for students to practice all the skills that they're being taught directly or practicing in small group organically in the classroom setting with their peers. And so that is also cross-curricular. What we're teaching in second step, like for example, taking turns also translate when we're doing whole group or we're doing small group. And so we really interconnect those skills and those concepts throughout the entire time that we're instructing in the classroom. Adults are very involved in the play-based instruction in the classroom. They're providing specific feedback to students as they're engaging in play. They're providing questions and prompts to extend students' play or to address any misconceptions that they have. Our teachers are very intentional, thank you, about designing play-based experiences for students. So they're providing specific manipulation. When you're doing a water study, they're providing every area of the classroom has water in the sensory table. They're looking at the water life cycle. They're looking at different ways that you use water to grow plants. So it's all really interconnected into each one of areas of the classroom, which allows us to extend on the play as well as the academics. And then we also, as Ms. Sims spoke to previously, is that our staff is dual certified at Faith North. So that means they're special ed certified as well as general education certified. So part of that is being able to design specially designed instruction for our students. And what that looks like is that we are differentiating the tasks, maybe the small group tasks, or the whole group tasks to the students to meet them at their level. So that is providing a variety of different scaffolds, which could be visual supports, movement breaks, adaptive seating, different tools for handwriting in our Learning Without Tears curriculum, so that we are able to provide those accommodations and those scaffolds so that students are able to access the curriculum and ensure that they're mastering their IEP goals as well collectively. And then we also have the pyramid model, which we're implementing. We did a professional development for all of our teachers for the last year. I've actually applied through ADE to become a pyramid model implementation site at Faith North. And it's really focused on a tiered system for providing different strategies for teachers to implement in the classroom to support consistency with maybe behavioral challenges that we're seeing, as well as social emotional development as well. So we're looking at how we're maximizing the daily routines, how we're focusing on transitions for students, because our students with special needs often have a struggle with transitions. So how are we making sure that we're providing them the support that they need during that time? Because we know that that can be behavioral challenges for families. It's focusing on developing positive relationships with families and your colleagues and your students and how that really impacts their a sense of community in their classroom. So it's a great system that we have, framework that we've been exploring, and it's also aligned to PBIS, which we also do at our sites. So that's positive behavior intervention supports. And at Faith North, our behavior expectations that we teach is being safe and being kind, and that's what we focus on. And we positively reinforce that throughout the day in the classroom, but around campus. Our staff is using the same vocabulary to support students. You're hearing it with students, especially now this time of year, using it amongst themselves. Oh, I like how you're being safe. You're sharing, you're walking, or I like how you're being kind. You're sharing with your friends. So we've seen a lot of really great growth with our students and our community within the classroom and our school culture with PBIS. And then our ESS services are provided in the classroom setting. That's much different than what you get into elementary ages. I personally am very proud and happy that this is how our services are provided. So like I mentioned previously, our teachers are special ed and general education certified. So they provide support for any of the cognitive, social, emotional, adaptive needs for our students. So those services are in the classroom for them. But then our related service providers also come into the classroom setting. So that would be our OT, occupational therapists, our physical therapists, our hearing and vision specialists. They come in and work with the students. And so that really allows us to maximize instructional time. We don't want our kids being pulled out because they're missing instruction in the classroom. So that is a big benefit of that. Also, we have the opportunity to collaborate with our therapists when they're in the classroom. They're not there the whole day, but our teachers and RIAs are there the whole day. So they teach the staff the interventions, the scaffolds. So we're able to provide those supports to students consistently in the classroom with fidelity, which allows them to be able to access the curriculum. And also we've seen a lot of growth with that consistent implementation of those supports.
Thank you, Principal Eddington. I'll just go briefly about the pedagogy over at Shaw. As we know, Shaw is a Montessori campus. It's one of our specialized programs, and therefore their preschool aligns to that model throughout the entire school. So with Montessori being specially designed manipulative learning materials, really having the students take ownership and be the leaders of their own learning. There is the initial screening that we always do with our preschool kids coming in, but beyond that, they are then in, and when they're admitted into the program, it's predominantly self-directed activities, very hands-on, very experiential learning. Children work in carefully prepared classroom environments. So the classrooms, when you walk into those classrooms, it's very clear that you're in a Montessori classroom. Everything from the lighting to the tools that are out there and what the students are doing is very, very aligned to that model. Educators act as observers and guides. So again, that student directed. So the educators are really just there to facilitate the learning that the children by their very nature are engaging in. And it's promoting independence and curiosity for the students in the program. That being said, I want to also highlight again the work that is being done in the pedagogy for our dual language program and that we're building out as Ms. Gonzalez discussed, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, so going into dual language, one of the pieces is we wanted to know if there was an existing curriculum that was used in the past, and we were fortunate to know that it was parts of the teaching strategies, which is already used with the rest of our preschool schools. So we did contact the curriculum developer, and they put us in contact with their experts in DLI and how it's used across the nation to give us ideas of how we can implement ours, because we really wanted to mirror what they will get in K2. So knowing that it's a longer day, how can we provide that 50-50 where half of the day is in one language and the other half is in the partner language. So that's what we're working to structure. They have the materials in Spanish as well. So how do we ensure that we blend it with all of the other pieces that are part of the preschool program? We know that research says that there is that window of opportunity that students can really map out 2 languages before the age of 6 because it's that sponge effect. So giving them that opportunity in preschool to really listen to, be receptive to the language and have that natural voice for it. Because above all the things that they'll be learning in all of the content areas, understanding that they're learning that the world functions in more than just one language and what are those words that they're learning as they go, and really setting them up for kinder. We're very fortunate, like Ms. Sims shared, that our programs have certified teachers. Our teacher that will be running our dual language preschool is a certified teacher, veteran teacher, coming off of kindergarten. She fully understands what students need to know by the time they get to kinder, which is an asset for us to have in the program. The pieces that we'll be working with is okay, now let's see in a kinder DLI program, what are those milestones we would like for them to have by the time they get to kindergarten. So it's really a team effort. We're excited that that our teacher has experience, but also that she's willing to collaboratively work with the team to ensure that we hit those milestones. Because one of the goals for DLI preschool is to build that biliteracy, not just the speaking of it, but also getting them ready to read and write in another language. And ultimately to have our students leave us and be ready to engage in their seal of biliteracy in high school, which is something accepted by our state. As a high recognition. So really setting up that pathway to biliteracy starting at preschool. Assessments will still be the general assessments that are given to preschool. And yeah, we'll continue to work as a K2 and as the dual language program at Lowell continues to grow, how does it thread out from preschool onto the other grades?
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And we're going to now be phasing into the next section, which is dealing with the enrollment. But before I do that, I wanted to pause for any questions regarding the pedagogy, the assessment practices. What does a school day look like for a preschooler in one of these classrooms? We're obviously incredibly proud of the programs that we've built and the teachers that are leading them. So at this time, are there any questions regarding the teaching practices, the assessments, or anything with the curriculum involving in those preschools that I can try and answer?
I have a few, but I think if it's okay, I'm going to hold them to the end.
Absolutely.
Yes, kind of going back to the Shaw Montessori and it's being like more of a self-directed classroom. How successful is that? How successful is that?
That's a really phenomenal question, and we are going to be highlighting for you in a little bit. You're good. No, you're good. You know where we're going. Yeah, you're just setting it up. So I appreciate you. We will be talking a little bit about the data that is coming out of these programs and what does it look like for a student who has been in these programs and what is their success rate going into third grade, which is ultimately our goal, and what that looks like. So we'll be talking a little bit about that shortly. But it is without giving it away, the results are astounding. Please.
I do have a quick question. And it's more clarifying than anything. I noticed the assessments, they're just a handful of them at Faith North, and then it's mostly the initial screening at the other sites. So I just wanted to get a little more clarification on that as far as, I know our majority population is our exceptional students. So I just wanted to, I guess, understand, that there are IEP goals and stuff like that at other campuses, or is that not? Okay, just wanted to understand that part a little bit better.
Yes, we'll talk a little bit about.
Yes,
the-
absolutely.
yeah.
So Lowell will also have all the screenings that I mentioned, the goal assessment, the benchmark assessment, the tracking the IEP goals if they have ESS students in the classroom. I don't know what additional assessments Shaw does, but we can gather data, I'm sure, for that.
Sorry if I may. Principal Eddington and Dr. Ailshire, Mary Lou and I are planning a session before the end of the school year to get with all administrators so that we can have a really clear systemic approach of what the expectations are at all of our campuses. We've made kind of a rough outline of what all we need to cover at those to make sure that it is consistent at all of our campuses, because that is something that we're kind of finding our footing with this year with the tuition-based model. And so making sure that we understand what our minimum requirements are district-wide, and then maybe there's an offshoot at Shaw Montessori, but really making sure that we understand what the district's expectation is for assessment at all of those sites. And of course, we have to follow the federal for IEPs. But thank you, that's a good question. And thank you for reminding me, we also provide the ESS services for students that live in our district at Head Start. So they're getting those early interventions as well.
Thank you, Director Sims. So we're touching upon right now just sort of the various systems that we want to make sure throughout the district for that consistency and that equity that we've got. And so we're going to talk a little bit now about sort of the enrollment process, both for our general preschools in Faith North, as well as what does it look like at Shaw, before we then talk a little bit about what the early entry kindergarten assessment process looks like that Principal Eddington has built out this year. And it's phenomenal. So with that being said, I'll again turn it over to Principal Eddington and talk a little bit about the preschool enrollment process.
All right, so it's actually pretty similar for the first part for Faith North, actually all the Emerson, Kenilworth and Lowell. So we first have families submit an initial application, a preschool application, and that has moved electronically this year. So I'm really pleased about that. It's a lot more convenient and efficient for families. So once we receive the application, we will go ahead and schedule a screening for the student. And that's the initial screening that I referenced earlier. And the student will come into the school, they'll do the screening. We also have a parent report that's filled out, and they provide us some additional information about the student's self-help and social emotional skills. And then all of that data is used to determine help with placement, as well as if we need some additional information to have the child attend a child find screening. And then we would schedule at that time for the family. So the child comes to the screening, they bring their birth certificate, their proof of address, immunization records, those are required documents for enrollment. And then we do the screening itself. If they pass, like I mentioned previously, they would get enrolled at that time. We are working on online enrollment, which hopefully will be coming this summertime. Currently, we're doing the paper packet still, but we get all of that documentation and provide it to our office staff to enter into Synergy. And then we let them know that their teacher, and the teacher reaches out in end of July to welcome them to their class. And then we start school the beginning of August, the same time as the rest of the school district. So the same part is the same for the beginning for the screening process for Kenilworth, Emerson, and Lowell. They receive the electronic application, then we screen the student, they bring the child in, the proof of address. Based on that screening outcome, they have enrollment paperwork provided to them for Emerson, Kenilworth, and Lowell. And if the child needs some additional screening, they'd be referred to our child find screening if they are an in-district student. And then after that, if they're interested in applying for a Quality First Scholarship, we provide parents with that information. Also on the application for preschool is wondering if they are DES subsidy. And so we take that case number and we connect them with the person Layla, who's in charge of DES, so we can make sure that's going, get that all up and ready to go for the first day of school. And then it's a really quick turnaround for the Quality First Scholarships. So they would know if they applied during the summertime, if they're available for the 26-27 school year. And then they also get set up with ProCare, and ProCare is our billing system where they receive invoices for how much their family is going to cost. And then also they can pay through that ProCare as well. And then the teacher will reach out to them. We have moved to the electronic system for the application because I'm not at all of the classrooms at Emerson and Kenilworth, and the teachers are gone over summertime as well. So by having that electronic application system, I'm able to monitor those applications and have students come in and screen them over the summertime to ensure that they're retained to go to those classrooms. We didn't want to have them wait until the end of July to do the screening and then see if their child is actually going to be accepted into the program. We wanted to make sure that families knew right away so they could plan for that as well. So that's going to be a new perk of the electronics application system.
Ms. Eddington, you mentioned a couple of times child find. Could you elaborate a little bit for us, please, just so the group remembers? It's very important for our early learners what that process means to us as a district.
Yes, absolutely. So we have Child Find at Faith North Campus, and with students that parents call or we get teacher referrals that they have some developmental concerns or for their child, they feel they may have a delay or they may be coming from AZIP or receiving outside services, they come to Child Find. We do a screening for the student. If the screening, which includes our special education teachers, our related services, so it's a comprehensive screening. If the team feels that child needs to move to evaluation, they receive an entire evaluation process looking at all of the developmental levels. If that child qualifies for services, they get an eligibility. It could be anywhere from speech and language impairment to preschool severe delayed, a developmental delay. Once they get that eligibility, then they also determine their LRE, which could be a general education classroom setting, or it can be a self-contained classroom based on the needs of the student. So we use a lot of that comprehensive information to make sure that we're providing the services and supports for kids in the classroom, but we're also placing them in the correct, least restrictive environment. And that process is pretty quick. So that's why we like to get, once we do the screening that day, we will sign them up for the child find screening if there's any concerns from the family. And when we have families come in and do the preschool screening, it's a very collaborative approach. We do interviews with the families. We ask about if they're receiving any outside services. We have conversations about, how their children's speech is or their interactions with other students. Because sometimes our families this is their first child and they may not be aware of delays. So we help to support with that process in its entirety.
Thank you so much. And are we required to do that for every child or just children in the district?
So for our students that attend our school district, we are required to do child find for our students that are within our reside in our district. But if you reside outside of our district, their child find is the one that does the evaluation, depending on where the family resides.
Thank you. And are we connecting families with their home district if they need that service?
Yes, so we have our child find secretary, and if we are recommending a child find screening for someone that is outside of our district, we provide them with the phone number, the contact information, everything that they need to be successful to reach out. I have also called for families, the child find in other districts to help them facilitate them connecting with them with their child find in another district as well. So we just really want to make sure that the families are receiving the support that they need.
May I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So it looks like it's always an option to complete the application electronically. Is that true regardless of the location?
Yes, so I believe that was the form that was online. Does it look like a preschool application form?
It says on here in the two different columns, so under Faith North and then Kenilworth, Emerson, and Lowell, it says complete the preschool application electronically and then complete the preschool application electronically. So it looks to me like it's always done electronically.
So we just started that this school year.
Okay.
It's a Google form for families to complete. Before, they had been requesting like a paper application from the front office if they were interested in a preschool application.
Okay, because somebody had mentioned that they had to fill out the paper form, so I just wanted to clarify that electronic's always an option.
Yes, it is. Yep, moving forward, starting this school year.
So
Thank
to
you.
clarify, Vice President Edmondson, so we have a Google form. That Google form allows us to know that we have a family that is interested in the program. From there, Principal Eddington herself or members of her staff follow up with that family for them to then complete the paper packet. We are moving towards fully online enrollment for preschool, just as we do with all of our other classes, but it requires us to set that all up in the system. And so we're working on that currently with the hopes that we have a fully online system starting in August of next year. But for right now, it is a Google form, alerts Faith North staff, then the parent or caregiver fills out a paper packet associated with that.
Also, in addition to that, if families are struggling with completing anything electronically or on paper, staff in the front office, the family and community engagement specialist, and all preschool staff are trained in assistance with making sure the Google form is completed so that we can get in contact with families. And then if assistance is required with the paper packet, we're happy to do that at the school sites or at Faith North.
I do got a little. What's going on?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I did have to fill out a paper packet. I would have to say that the process was a little, I think somebody needs to reach back out because no one ever reached back out to me to be like, hey, you know what? I mean, I seen you. That's the only reason why we would talk about it. But if I was just a regular parent, just, trying to sign my kid up, no one ever followed up with me. No one ever said, hey, you coming back? And I still haven't enrolled my son there. So that's something to look out for. I definitely think that electronic is easier because it was kind of hard for me to go back and forth and do a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, I think a big hurdle for me was moving my DES, the childcare over. So maybe somebody could have reached out, hey, did you need any help with that? We could do this, that's just a recommendation.
Thank you, President Ovalle. That's exactly why we're having these meetings, to make sure that we're improving the process. So thank you. All right, I will briefly just outline the process over for Shaw. This was a question that came up earlier, so hopefully I addressed that. So for Shaw, you see here that the process actually gets started in January, where they are having informational sessions. That includes caregivers or families coming over to the campus, touring the campus, observing what's going on in the classrooms, and that happens again in January right off the bat. From there, if parents or families are interested, they would then complete an application, and then Shaw family will then schedule, or the Shaw will reach out to schedule their preschool screening after the application has been completed by the caregivers. As you pointed out, President Ovalle, there is a lottery for Shaw because there is a wait list. That process is outlined very clearly in our board policy JFB. But beginning in April, we basically hold whatever openings we have, and we do prioritize it through the lottery system outlined in that policy. Based on what is pulled from the lottery, the office manager then calls lottery allocations and makes appointments for families to then come in and complete an enrollment packet. Then by June 30th, we are making decisions regarding what classrooms the students are going into. At Shaw, we look to have about 26 children in every classroom and with 2 adults. They got a teacher and they have a teacher's aide. And as we've pointed out repeatedly throughout this presentation, the teachers are all certified Montessori teachers over at Shaw, just as we have certified teachers in all of our preschool classrooms. And they have that additional aid as well to support. And then school starts the first week of August with back to school night held on the Monday before to make sure families are acquainted with the campus, the kids know where they're going, and all of those logistical details. And so that is the process over at Shaw.
We have questions about this.
Yep.
So I would say when I was enrolling my son, we actually got chosen to be at this school. We did the waiting list and all that. But because he had an IEP, we were told he didn't qualify for the school. Is that a thing? Like if kids have certain IEPs, they can't be there, or what does that look like?
So no, that is, there's a different process with that. So that would be considered an open enrollment, and you can fill out that form and it goes to Alicia Zelvis, our Director of Exceptional Services. And then she provides the approval for that placement based on the needs of the kids that are already there at Shaw and the capacity to be able to provide the resources and support for those students. So that would be an open enrollment to the Director of Special Education for approval, but it does not mean that your child would not be able to attend. Does that clarify?
Honest with you, I wish I would have done more research when we were told no, because so we went to Faith North, we had the assessment done there. And then at the same time, Shaw Montessori was like, you got the enrollment. I was like, all right, cool. And then we were told no, it wouldn't be a good fit for him. And so we just were like, okay, and just went with Faith North. But I'm curious if other IEP parents go through that and if it disqualifies us from being in a classroom setting like that.
No.
So IEPs determine the least restrictive environment. So if a student is coming in with an IEP, that's got to be reviewed. So if you have an early intervention individualized education plan that's written, that document determines, and Shaw may not have the staff and the supports in place to support that child based on that document. It's not a no, they can't attend Shaw. It's a we can't meet their needs at Shaw. Those are two very different things. So we'd be happy to look at that, for you more in depth. But we have legal requirements that Shaw is expected to take students with disabilities if they can safely and educationally prepare those children in the classroom.
Is there IEP kids at Shaw now?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so I'm curious a little bit about too, that there was a desegregation with that school. Is that correct?
So the implementation of Shaw's campus, that's not specific to preschool, but that was, it was a response to a desegregation order from years ago.
Okay. And so most of these kids, are they, the ones that are coming in, are they in district but not in the area, or are they
It's a variety. If you go back and look at the policy JFB, and I apologize, I don't have that in front of me, nor do I have it memorized. There's a lottery system of, it doesn't matter if you're in or out of district. If you're entering into the lottery system, you have the same chance of enrollment living in or out of the district. Many families were choosing the free preschool program because it was a free Montessori program. Now that we're implementing a fee for service, we do anticipate that we'll see less out-of-district students coming to access our program.
Yeah, I guess I was just asking because when I was running for election, I had to get signatures, and specifically in that area, there was just a lot of complaints of not having access to that school in particular. And so that kind of just stuck out at me, and I was curious about that, so.
It is a wait list. We're the only free public Montessori in this part of town. So it is a very sought after program because, as you'll see in a little bit, the results are there, as they are with all of our preschool programs.
And just to not to go into any specifics about any students in their IEPs, but Shaw does not have a self-contained program. So going back to what Director Sims was pointing out, if we have a student that is enrolling and they've gone through the application process at Shaw, just with any of our other campuses, not all campuses have that level of services. So if we find, whether it's Shaw or whether it's Lowell, what have you, if we find that that campus doesn't have those particular specialized classrooms that a student would need, we would be referring them to other schools that do have those programs. But again, it's completely based on the individual needs that a student comes with their IEP.
What's the teacher-student ratio at Shaw?
As I pointed, and for the preschool, and it's 26 students to a classroom with 1 teacher and 1 aide.
Okay.
Mhm.
Multi-age grouping. So I asked this question before we got here because I wanted to make sure it's 10 kindergarten students and 16 preschool students for the total of 26 in a classroom.
Okay. One of the major things that we have accomplished this year, and I would say I'm just riding on the coattails of Principal Eddington, is to sort of formalize the process of doing early entry kindergarten assessment. We have been really working hard to streamline this process, so I want to give credit to Principal Eddington and her team and have her take a few minutes just to talk about the process and the work she's done so far on the early entry kindergarten assessment process.
All right, so we also have, like we did for our preschool application, for our early kinder entry assessment application, there's a Google form that families complete. And once we get that information, they're able to schedule an assessment. They do request on that application what screening they would like, what assessment date they would like. And so we have them offered the 4th Thursday or Wednesday of every single month. So we just had one in April, which we had 5 students. And then we have up until July, we'll have screenings, and families can select what day works best for their student. We wanted to do that because you're only allowed to do the screening one time. So some kiddos may want to have more time in school if they had just had 1 year of preschool. So we wanted the parents to have that opportunity to screen their students when they felt it would be best meet their needs. And so once that's scheduled, the assessment, then it's a holistic approach. It's not just doing the assessment with the students. We use the Bergans early childhood screening tool once again. But if the student is currently in a preschool classroom, we reach out to the teacher. We've had some at Faith North, but we've also had I had a student from Bright Horizons. So I've reached out to that teacher to get information. So they do an assessment with their self-help and social emotional skills. So we gather that data. And then the parent also does a report as well. So we gather data that looks like in the school setting, at the home setting, as well as through the assessment, the academic assessment that we administer with the students. So we also asked of the application if the child has any IEP accommodations. So we make sure that we get that document and we look at those accommodations to make sure that we're implementing them when we're doing the assessment. We want to make sure that all students have access to the assessment and we can have a better understanding of their knowledge and kindergarten readiness with those accommodations that are required for them to access it and perform at their very best. So they attend the assessment. It doesn't take very long. It's play-based. So while we had 4 students or 5 students for our last one, we had them all come in together and we saw them interact. We did it in the Child Find screening room. They were playing with each other as part of it. Then we would do the cognitive piece with some of the students so that we had the opportunity to see how they were interacting with each other as well. And then the family fills out the parent form at that time. And then we ask for at the most 2 weeks. I try to get it in within a week. So I look at all of the data and I use the teacher report, the assessment we got from the Brigance for the academic piece, as well as the teacher report. And we use the self-scoring Brigance tool to determine if the student is eligible for kindergarten readiness, using that holistic child approach. And then once we receive the assessment results, I inform the family via email. We've also added to the preschool application what school the family would like the child to attend for kindergarten. So when I send out that email saying the assessment results, I also include if the child is going to move on to kindergarten. I've included the school team as well, the office manager and the principal, so that they know that that family is interested in going for attending for kindergarten and to help with that enrollment process. Currently, we're working on a little bit of an enrollment challenge with Synergy. The students are unable to apply online at this point just because their age at this time doesn't reach their requirement for kindergarten. So that's a little bit of a hurdle that we're working on, but we are able to do the paper packet for families. And that's why it's important to have that communication with the office staff and the principal so that they can reach out to the family and help with that enrollment process. Claudia, the enrollment specialist of the district, she's also been helping facilitate process with enrolling families to make sure that they get all their paperwork in and they're ready for the first day of school. And we also provide them a lot of information on the preschool options they would like to go to. We have done, for preschool options if they don't pass the kindergarten assessment. We want to retain them here in our district. So we tell them the different options for preschool. You could attend a tuition-based program. If you're within our school district, you can attend at Faith North, and we help with that enrollment process as well. And then as I mentioned, we notify the school so they can help with that and then do the enrollment. So we tried to make it very fluid for the families and as easy as possible. We already have the documents when we do the screening, the assessment for kindergarten. So we're able to send those documents also to this staff at the receiving school for kindergarten so they don't have to provide those again. So we're trying to make it as efficient and convenient for families as possible this year and moving forward. So I really feel like it's been a development of the early kinder entry assessment in a positive way because we're really helping with retaining students going to kindergarten, also to preschool. It's a very holistic approach. I mentioned previously, we're looking at kindergarten readiness for all aspects of the child, not just the cognitive piece, which we'd really been focusing on previously. There's a lot of importance of having students social emotionally ready for kindergarten and being able to adapt to the longer day and the more students in the classroom. And we want to make sure that they have those skills to be successful. And that helps with this assessment and this approach.
If I may, Dr. Aylshire, I just want to call out a special thank you to Ms. Eddington on this. Having this process in place throughout the school year, this historically had been done in the summer. Families who are shopping for kindergarten options are making choices way before summer. And so if we can do early kinder assessment and readiness and assist them with, this is your school of choice and here's what's happening over the summer in partnership with our Kindergarten for a Day programs that we've done this year. This is just, when we talk about barriers to enrollment, getting this process in place and having that kinder early assessment is a huge one because this really does give families within the district and outside of the district another really solid early entry option for Phoenix Elementary for their kinder students. And we know if we can get them in kinder, more than likely they stay with us longer. So I just really wanted to thank you for getting this process solidified and getting it in place much earlier in the year.
A little celebration. So I think that I haven't scored all of the ones that we did in April, but at least 5 of everyone that's attended has so far been moved forward to early kinder entry. And I think that's 5 students and I have 4 more to score still. So that is a celebration.
Okay, thank you. We're going to, as we've emphasized repeatedly throughout this presentation, we believe in the absolute importance of our preschool programs and the impacts it makes for our kiddos. However, it is a unfunded endeavor, right? This is not something that the state has funded, and so we are always trying to determine how we can best provide these services to our kiddos while also being responsible to our taxpayers and our community and our budget. So with that being said, I want to turn over to Director Whittle, who talks about a little bit of the juggling act of trying to fund these preschool programs without the benefit of state assistance.
Thank you, Dr. Aylshire. So here's the fun part as to how does all this come together through a funding means. We created a chart here that shows the governing board, shows the community, the last 5 years of what preschool has cost us, what revenue we brought in, and the total district subsidy. We also show the number of students served over the last 5 years. And you'll see in 21, 22, district subsidy about 3.8 million, 22, 23, 3.2 million. Now what the district subsidy, what we're saying is we do get revenue from the state for preschool severe PSD, but there's also an expense to that. And as we heard earlier from Director Sims, we do have a certified teacher in every single preschool classroom we have. Now, what you'll see in 24, 25, huge increase in number of students served, 488, and the district subsidy of 4.2 million. Now, coming into 25, 26, you see that the number of students served took a drop to 343 students. Our district subsidy took almost a 50% drop as well, down from 4.2 million in 25 to 2.1 million in 26. And what we're seeing there is we're seeing an increase in our revenue. So if we go over to our revenue column, anticipated by the end, 1.4, almost $1.5 million in revenue. That is the $750 per student per month. And the expenditures are going down as well. So you see in 24, 25 prior year, we had 4.5 million in expenditures. In 25, 26, we reduced that by $1 million down to 3.5 million. And that's mainly due to combining our preschools and going to three sites with a Faith North. So we're not, mainly that is through attrition and through salaries and benefits reduction. Now, as you're looking at the number of students served, I want you to take a look at that column and go to fiscal year 21, 22. You'll see the 360 kids, 360 students served. I'm going to read down how much the state provided funding for us for each of those fiscal years. 360 students served in fiscal year 22. The state provided 24 students funding. We had 401 in 23. The state provided 25 students. Fiscal year 24, we had 453. The state provided funding for 44 of those students. Fiscal year 25, we had 488 students served. The state provided 51 students funding. And this year we have 343 students and the state is providing 45 students funded. So I think it's very important to understand preschool does come with a cost to where we're not getting the full funding that districts should be receiving. But it is a huge part of our data that we see. It is a huge part of a student's life that if they are with us at the preschool level and they stay with us, we're able to provide that data of what the return on investment is. So with the district subsidizing the $2 million, what are we getting in return? And I want to turn it back over to Dr. Elshire to provide that data for you.
Thank you, Director Whittle. So for the preschool, the return on investment, right, that we are investing large sums of capital and effort to build up these preschool programs, knowing that it makes a difference for our kids, it makes a difference for our families. So one piece of data that I want to show to everyone here is this is the retention rate of students that participated in a preschool at Phoenix Elementary number 1. So students that basically had or were in our preschool, our specific preschool here in Phoenix Elementary number 1. This is our retention rate of students across all of the campuses that then matriculated eventually up to 3rd grade. So for example, when we look at Bethune in 2023, they had 12 students at that campus that had been with us and that had attended Phoenix Elementary School District preschool. In 2024, they had 9 students at Bethune that were in one of our preschools, and in 2025, they had 6 students that were in one of our preschools. So if you'll take a look at throughout, for example, you'll see some of these programs, for instance, like Shaw, where they're having a very large retention of students that were in a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool, with 30 students at Shaw in 2023, 28 in 2024, 49 in 2025. And so you'll see there at the very bottom the grand total, representing in 2023, we had 139 students in our 3rd grade class that had been in a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool. In 2024, we had 113 students. That then drops to 102 in 2025. But I do want to point out that when we talk about 2024-25, that's when our district really took a pretty big hit on our general enrollment, as you know. And so that number of only losing 9 students essentially from the preschool programs, or that were in one of our preschool programs, it's actually a better rate of retention than what the district as a whole experienced during that time. What is incredibly thrilling, and going to your question, really pertinent question, President Ovalle, of, well, how's it all going? We're doing this whole presentation, like what's the final evidence that this is something that is worthwhile and good for our kids? And this data was just incredible to put together. I want to thank the MIS team who went through years and years of longitudinal student data to come up with this. So this is really, really impressive. And so what I want to point out to you is the simple graph that this is showing. The first year students are taking the ASA, which is the state mandated assessment test. They take it in 3rd grade. So what you're seeing here is the blue line represents 3rd graders who were not in one of our preschools in 2023, 2024, and 2025. So if you were a 3rd grader who was never in a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool, the average pass rate in 2023 was 24% for math, 25% in 2024, and 26% in 2025. So pretty stagnant as you kind of go through those 3 years, very similar outcomes. The yellow line represents students that were in a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool. So we actually disaggregated all of our 3rd graders and said, these are the kids that weren't ever in one of our preschools, and these were all the kids that were in one of our preschools. And you'll see that the data is markedly different between those 2 students. So if a student was in one of our preschools in 2023, by the time they reached 3rd grade, they scored a 36% proficiency rate, 12% higher than a student who was not, 31% back in 2024, and incredibly 44% in 2025. So again, that is showing the educational outcomes for students, that if they attended one of our preschools, they have markedly different outcomes in terms of their success rate on the math. And this is even more pronounced on the reading, right? We know that early childhood literacy is an incredible goal for our district, as it should be for all districts. So by 3rd grade, you really do want to see them having a high degree of proficiency on their reading. And you'll see here that a student who did not attend a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool in 23, they averaged, a 3rd grader averaged 22% pass rate, 21% in 2024, and then 19% in 2025. So again, fairly level. But if they did attend a Phoenix Elementary School District preschool in 2023, that 3rd grader scored 32%, 10% higher than the kid next to them that did not attend one of our preschools. 26% pass rate in 2024, and incredibly a 30% difference. They had a 49% pass rate in 2025, a 30% difference between that child who attended a preschool of ours versus a child who did not attend one of our preschools. This data, as I had talked to Dr. Gonzalez about it, I felt like was a call to action really for our state, if nothing else, to show that if imagine the outcomes all school districts could achieve, all schools could achieve if the state were able to fully fund and stepped up and fully funded what this could look like. Because just us and the subsidies that we're putting in is showing these incredible educational outcomes and academic outcomes. So to any state legislator that is watching or that we are talking to, this is a huge, huge evidence of the power of having a certified teacher in a high fidelity curriculum classroom, research-based classroom, having incredible professionals running those programs and doing the incredible work that we're doing. You see the educational outcomes that are there. So we will continue to advocate at the state level as well as in our community level of the importance of preschool. And we are committed to continually providing more and more of these opportunities and finding ways to subsidize these costs for our families, because the educational outcomes are very clear when they have that opportunity.
I was gonna say, I'm really big on early education. I had my kids in early education from the beginning. And, you know, we're talking about retention and stuff. For me, it's really about student successes, making sure they have the foundational needs. So when they move forward, we're giving them what they need holistically, as you mentioned. Just to kind of go back to the preschool students retained by third grade. I'm seeing from 2023 to 2025 that we've gone significantly down. Can you tell me like what was going on during those times, or like what caused that decrease?
I could talk to some of it, which is one, as a school district, our population continues to decrease, right? So what we see in that is going to be reflective of the overall enrollment decline that our district has experienced over those same number of years. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head of how much the percentage of our decline during that time, but you'll certainly see those numbers of those students that are not being retained, those are students that's reflective of sort of the general trend of our district of those decline enrollments. We had anticipated, probably a bigger hit in that 2024-25 area because of all of the various factors that impacted our enrollment from last year, from federal immigration issues and things of that nature, as well as just working in an urban school district that is increasingly seeing our neighborhood homes being turned into things that don't necessarily generate students into our classrooms. But like I said, to only see 9 students decline between 2024 and 2025 really speaks to when we saw that the district as a whole was losing many, many more, larger percentage of students than that. We're hopeful that as we provide more of these preschool opportunities, we can continue to see more retention, but there is that decline.
Okay, and then per usual, Magnet and Shaw, they typically keep their numbers high, even in maths, and test scores. And I'm seeing retention here is high. What is happening here that is not happening at other schools?
I would believe that, so for example, in the Shaw program, if the families are able to get into that Montessori program and they're landing in there, then they are just choosing to stay there. So what we're seeing is just a large number of students. When I think you're absolutely, you also see a high percentage of retention over at Garfield, for example, as well, and Edison as well. But as you pointed out, those schools, Shaw and Magnet, those are some of our higher performing schools. So it makes sense that we're going to see a large number of students when you take that in consideration of the data that I just showed you of what happens to students at third grade if they've been in one of our preschools. They perform, in some cases 30% better than a peer that didn't attend one of our schools. So we know that if we're able to get students into preschool and hold on to them at all of our campuses and as many campuses as possible, it will have really great outcomes to their educational success later on as they go through.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go back one page. Is that okay? If we
Yeah,
go back
absolutely.
to
Which one?
preschool revenue. So when you say revenue, that's money that we're bringing in?
Yes, that's money that is being brought into the district.
Okay, and then you said for 25, 26, it's higher because we have the fee.
The fee, the $750 per
tuition.
student. Yeah.
And prior to that, there was no tuition?
From parents, no tuition.
Okay, so explain to me how this revenue, and I'm sorry, explain to me how we brought this revenue in without the tuition.
From the prior years?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So the prior years, we, and I had mentioned, I read numbers. If you look at the number of students served. So for example, in fiscal year 25, there was 488 students served. but we had 51 total students that we received funding for from the state.
Mm-hmm.
So we do get funding for preschool severe delay, PSD. We do get funding for those. But if we're serving 488, we're only getting funding for 51 of those students.
Okay, so that 51 contributes to this revenue here?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then
Is that the whole amount or is there?
that's the whole amount.
Okay.
Yep. So you can see from the state from 2021, 2022, all the way to 24, 25, the revenue is from grants and is from state aid. So what the state pays us.
Mhm. Okay.
President Ovalle, that's, I'm glad you pointed out that column. A couple things to keep in mind in that revenue column for next year. We grandfathered in our 4-year-olds at Shaw this year. They're not paying. Next year they will. So each of those children at Shaw in that 4-year-old group will be charged that $525 or the $750, excuse me, for a full day. And then also, we talked about building those programs over 2 years. Our Kenilworth enrollment for next year has tripled. So there will be a significant increase in enrollment there. And then Emerson already is at 10 enrollments. So that's a significant. So I anticipate that revenue column for 26, 27 will be even higher because we will have more tuition paying children.
Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, I want to thank Principal Eddington. I want to thank Ms. Gonzalez for being here to speak to the programs at large that they are leading. And at this time, if there are any further questions from our board, we'd be happy to work to answer them.
I have a couple questions about just this last part. So we have the data on the retention through 3rd grade. Do we have data on retention through 8th grade, or is that something that we could get?
We don't have that currently. It is something that we could certainly work to get. It took a while to just desegregate the data here for the 3rd grade piece, so it would take us a little bit to do that, but I can certainly work with the MIS team if that is something that the board would like.
I think that would be helpful. And another piece on the retention. So when we're looking at kindergarten enrollment for current students at Faith North for next year, do we have comparisons on retention for enrollment at Faith North compared to like Shaw, Emerson, and Kenilworth?
Make sure I understand the question that you're asking. Are you asking based on this retention data, do we know of those students, what percentage of them attended Faith North versus which percentage of them attended Shaw, so on and so forth, and breaking it down that farther? Is that what you're asking?
I think kind of like as a separate metric, like when you're looking at the different preschool programs, how they're being retained going into kindergarten by the various schools.
Ms. Edmiston, are you asking how many Faith North preschoolers go on to enroll in kindergarten in district?
Yes.
Got it.
And in comparison, the Faith North versus Shaw, Emerson, and Kenilworth, like how many students are being retained into kindergarten from preschool, if that makes sense.
Thank you. We don't have that information, but we're happy to get it.
Yep.
Okay. And then just going back to the grandfather part that Ms. Sims brought up, can you go over that again just briefly?
So if you were a 3 going into the 4, if you were a family that was planning on continuing having a consistent plan, right? Keeping your kid in preschool for 3 and 4, we didn't feel that it was, I hate the word fair, but we didn't feel that it was in a family's best interest to charge tuition to a family who had enrolled believing that the 3 and the 4-year program would be no charge. So all of those families received those services they were grandfathered in at no charge for this year only. And then all new students coming in next year will be paying tuition.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Of course.
I do have a few more like overarching questions, but I want to pause in case anybody has more questions on this part.
It sounds like the floor is yours.
Okay, and these might be questions that we need to get answers on later. So if it is, that's okay. But I just want to make sure that I understand the board role when it comes to these preschool decisions really well. So my first question is, does the board have to approve DES applications?
Approve them for admittance into our classrooms?
Yes.
No. That is a completely separate financial program that is determined by the state. That is available to families who choose to apply. The district merely provides the documentation and provides classrooms that are acceptable for that funding source to be used in. We don't have anything to do with the application. We do have a dedicated employee who serves as a liaison, if you will, for families and the Department of Economic Security, just for a system flow to keep things consistent and in compliance with the department and with families.
Okay, so a clarifying question on that, because somebody had mentioned that there was a vote in the consent agenda in July of this past year, and I wasn't on the board then, so I don't recall that. I didn't recall that. But if there could be a clarification on that, you know, what exactly the vote was and why the board had to take an action on it, that would be helpful.
In regards specifically to accepting.
I haven't had a chance to review it yet, so I haven't read it. Just somebody mentioned it to me. And I wasn't on the board, so I don't recall it at all. So I'll go back and I'll look. But it was from the July 2025 meeting. They said in the consent
let me-
agenda, there was a board vote on DES.
Just to tap in on that, as a DES recipient, we applied through the state and then we let them know where we want to attend. And so they give us a list, but if you kind of already know where you want to go, you just let the DES caseworker know. And then everything's done on the back end. If you're asking if there's enrollment issues once you apply and go into or you designate a school, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but I don't think y'all put any barriers on your end, right?
No, tuition payment is tuition payment to us, and that's all done through ProCare. We're happy to go back through those consents. If you're able to provide us a month, I'd be happy to look into that. I'm sorry, I can't recall off the top of my head that the board took any type of action regarding Department of Economic Security payments, but we'll have to go back and check.
Yeah, it was
It's July 2025.
Yeah, July 2025, and I'll go back and I'll look as well to clarify that. Thank you. Okay. So then another specific question on that is that, can you speak to the pricing when it comes to instructional hours, like why the prices would be the same regardless of instructional hours, if there's more versus less, like 7 hours versus 6 hours, and why the price would be the exact same?
I think I'm trying to, in terms of, I think I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So are you asking how much, if we were to break it down, how much we would be charging per hour for the tuition payments for preschool?
Well, I think the question is along the lines of there are differences in the number of instructional hours being offered. Some are 7 hours, some are 6 hours, but the pricing structure doesn't generally account for that. It's generally the same regardless of that. So why is that effectively? Why isn't the price different based on instructional hours?
I don't think there is a difference in instructional hours. Is there, Ms. Eddington?
We have the 6-hour day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. There is 1 hour less on Wednesdays
But all campuses have
But
the
that's
same amount of
consistent,
hours
yes.
per week.
Emerson, Lowell, and Kenilworth, and I believe with Shaw as well, but
Yeah, I don't believe there's any difference in the weekly amount of hours. If I'm missing your question, I apologize.
and the half-day students at Shaw, they get a reduced rate of $525 for that half-day for the 3-year-olds at Shaw.
Oh, is that your question? The 3-year-olds that are doing a half day, that is significantly less because of less hours. This year, 525.
Okay, I understood that there was some variation in the number of instructional hours, but you're saying that they're the same.
Correct.
All right, I'll follow up on that one. And then this is kind of like a broad overarching question. But can somebody walk us through, when it comes to preschool decisions, what decisions require board approval and how that generally works? And I know that that's kind of a larger question, but to the degree that it can be simplified for our understanding of when we would be asked to vote on decisions that are being made in this space.
I can take a stab at that one. My understanding with governing board decisions are in regards to the superintendent in one path and budget and finance on the other. So if there were decisions regarding financial implications with preschool, those would require not necessarily a board approval, but those would be something that Aaron's motioning it. If they're procedural items, we may come to you asking for permission if there's something large, like with staffing, if we need to make staffing changes or if we need to make other changes with that. So those are budgetary things that would require governing board approval.
Yeah, yeah. So if there's any procurement that meets our threshold typically over $100,000, we would go to the governing board for approval because we are making a purchase with district funds. So because it's over that threshold and part of the policy tells us, hey, we have to send this to the governing board.
The other piece that would require governing board approval are also policy things, such as the policy that was noted in the flow charts regarding the lottery system and the wait list. Those are also governing board approved policy. Dr. Bowman?
Another area of governing board approval is just when you approve the budget for each fiscal year. Within the budget is the cost for preschool. So that's another area where the governing board has a voting on the budget.
So to highlight, Vice President Edmondson, I think there's 3 major categories that we're kind of outlining when it comes to preschool decision-making authority for the board, and that would be in the areas of the budget, procurement, and policy.
Okay, thank you. And then just a couple other ones. So can and this sort of going back, but can you explain or detail a little bit more about like how when the decision was made to offer free half day at Faith North, how that decision, what was considered to make that decision versus offering it at other local schools?
So one of the main determining criteria were simply the number of students that needed to be serviced. And the large number of students we were not able to do in one session. And so we knew that the requirement for 2 half-day sessions, we wanted to serve as many children as possible. And one of the other things that happened at Faith North was also the addition of classrooms. How many classrooms did we add, Ms. Eddington? 2 classrooms. So in order to serve all of the students that had requirements that we needed to meet that lived in district, we needed to go to a half-day program that met the requirements for their IEPs, and having that at one central location so that we have staff and instructional aides that are trained in what those students needed to be centralized at one location. And it also assists with transportation because many more of those students have transportation within their plans.
And our students in IEP, which is the majority of our student population, also have access to free appropriate education, which needs to be a free service provided to our preschool students. So that is covered also within the half-day program at Faith North, so they can access those services at no cost to the family.
Thank you. And just a couple other ones. As far as going back to the revenue very quickly, I know it was mentioned that as it pertains to Head Start, that space is provided by the district. Does the district get compensated for that? Who compensates the district for that? And is that calculated into that revenue?
Great question. No, we do not receive revenue under the governing board policies on facility usage. There is a facility usage form that's completed along with the certificate of insurance, but that is a direct benefit to the district. As you can see in the academic achievement, students who get those early intervention services score much higher. So there is not there is no reimbursement for the space that's used.
Okay, thank you. And then the last point I just want to make, we don't necessarily need to discuss this now, but somebody told me that Shaw is 8:45 to 3:45. So that would be 7 hours, and Kenilworth is 7:30 to 1:30, which would be 6 hours.
I don't have that information in front of me. I'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Okay, and that's perfect. That's perfect. And just I think what the question would be along those lines is that if one school offers more instructional hours than another school, then why wouldn't there be a cost differential there? Just to understand that, like why is the cost structure the same regardless of instructional hours? Okay, and then one last question. Okay, going back to the Head Start issue, if they're not paying for the space, then I understand that they want to see about 20 students to stay, but I guess I'm struggling with that a little bit because I mean, doesn't seem like there would be a lot of overhead for Head Start to, keep a program at a particular location if they're not paying for the space.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're looking at federally funded programs, there are a slew of rules and things that you need to follow. Not all of those qualifications may make sense to everyone, me included, but there is a minimum operating number for sufficiency and sustainability in a program. And the program at Hurd has consistently not met those federally required numbers for the last 3 years. So us not charging them space, I think, if you dig into a little bit about what Head Start is, it's really a family wraparound program. And not all of the interventions and services are provided in the classroom. A lot of that is case management in the home. There's home visitation. There's family events. There's an extensive amount of case management and referral management. And that all comes with a cost and humans that need to execute all of those programs. And so they do have the minimum requirements. It's a gift to be asked by the city to house those Head Start programs because that's a valuable service to your residents. And we're grateful for that partnership. But unfortunately, we do not determine those rules for minimum enrollments.
And I think Director Sims is clear on this, but I just want to make sure that we emphasize we don't have any ability to influence their decisions of whether they are going to keep a program open or to close one on one of particular sites. We'll always be good partners and provide the space, but ultimately those are decisions that are made beyond the district or beyond the board.
Thank you. I think that's all for now. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. President Ovalle, if there are no other questions, that is the conclusion of our presentation.
sorry, I just want to thank you all for the work you do. I've been to Faith North several times, as I mentioned, and I've gone, just for different events y'all are having, and I love seeing the parents participate. That's like such a big deal for me. And again, those foundational tools that we're giving kids for the future, I think that's really important. So thank you for your work. And then your work at the dual language program. I have a 4-year-old, so I'm really excited to possibly put him in that program. So thank you for your work that you do there, and continuing that work. If there's no other questions, comments, or concerns, then I'm gonna move that we adjourn this meeting at 10:55 a.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
I had a quick question before we move on, not really a question, but just to share that I'm sending the agenda for July 29th over to you, Vice President Edmiston, and some coworkers of mine are shopping for preschools, and her feedback as well was that we are the cheapest that she's found anywhere, and she's excited to apply for our campuses. And I just wanted to thank everybody for their work that went into this. This was a lot more clear understanding than I've had from past study sessions, which I thought were really done well at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Second? We need a second?
Second. Any other comments?
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay. Board Member Trujillo,
Aye.
Vice President Edmiston,
Aye.
President Ovalle.
Yes, and with that, we end our meeting. Looking forward to seeing everybody at our next governing school board meeting on the